Hello everybody, we're back. It's Fantasy Football Fix here with another season of Eddie versus the Algorithm, the series where once more, the 24-25 season this time, I'll be taking on the Algorithm computer-generated highest predicted point scoring team for each of the 38 game weeks of the season, so a free hit team if you will basically. I'm putting up my own 1 week draft up against it. We see who can score more points in each game week. Last season, it was a pretty convincing win over the Algorithm. The season before that, very, very close indeed. So I'm hoping for more of the latter, or maybe this year we'll have a tougher race. But yeah, first week, let's get into it and kick things off by seeing how the computer-generated team is looking and who the highest predicted point-scoring players for your Game Week 1 teams are. So a very warm welcome back to any of you who are tuning into the series once again. If you're new around here, hopefully that explanation did make sense. Feel free to consider subscribing as well if you want to see more of this. Hopefully you enjoy your first viewing of the series. But yeah, as usual, we'll be revealing the Algorithm team first, running through it, discussing the picks. Then we'll have a look at my team, and we'll also take a look at the Captaincy. So we'll tend to do this weekly and compare some of the top captaincy options. And there is a fair bit of discussion around the captaincy for this game week. Across the course of the season, there'll be game weeks where there's more options, fewer options. I think it's pretty interesting for game week 1, so let's see what all the data is suggesting. If you want to check out any of the tools that we used for this video, then make sure to check out the links in the description. You can take them over to Fantasy Football Fix, where there's some great offers on before game week 1, so get in now. I use it all the time for my OptaStats tools and doing all the research around my FPL assets. But enough of that, let's get into the team and kick things off with the goalkeeper. And it's going to be a long-term Algorithm favourite, that is Jordan Pickford. A home fixture against Brighton isn't one that you'd say is the easiest on paper. They look like a very strong attacking side. They've signed some more firepower in this window. Minter, €35 million, I believe it was. Looks very impressive from Feyenoord. They brought in Bruges from Mainz today as well. They've obviously got João Pedro, Welbeck. A lot of their attackers eventually gaining fitness. They've still got players like Caesar to come back. But Brighton look like a very good attacking force. And Everton were just a very renowned defence last season. And I think that data will be feeding into a lot of the Algorithm's decision-making. And, you know, why shouldn't it? Pickford, I think, has been put off by a lot of people because he's not that traditional 4.5 that people like to start the season with. He's now priced at $5 million. But I still think he's definitely worth a thinking about. And could be one of those keepers that just continue to be part of the solid defence. And so if Everton continue in their ways and continue their form from last season, then he could be a great option. And he does have a home fixture this week, which is more than can be said for some of the other goalkeepers with kind fixtures. So yeah, a decent choice in the Algorithm there in goal. I'm actually quite impressed by that. In defence, we're going to see some home fixtures come into things. So Gabriel is the Arsenal defender that the Algorithm's picked. He's gone with Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, and then Burn as the final of the three at the back. So yeah, again, impressed with these picks. I think the Arsenal defence to target this week, at least, is very, very strong indeed. Wolves at home is a fantastic fixture. After that, of course, they become a little bit sketchy, and that's what is putting people off. I think only Saliba and Gabriel from Game Week 1 onwards, maybe, over the likes of someone like Gvardiol. But for this game week, I think they'll be great. They've looked especially impressive from set pieces, again in pre-season, as they did towards the end of last season, with Rice taking those corners now. Was it Gabriel and Saliba both scored the other day in one friendly, both from set pieces. So I think that's going to continue this year just because their centre-backs, don't let that put you off. They've got equal, if not more chance than a lot of attacking fullbacks at getting attacking returns. And of course, on that Arsenal side, they've got the potential for clean sheets more than a lot of sides. So yeah, Gabriel, a very nice pick. And you'd question his minutes maybe with Calafiori and other Arsenal assets availability coming back. We've got Urian Timber, etc., etc. There is a bit more competition in that Arsenal defence. So maybe Saliba's the more nailed of the two, and Gabriel's had some issues with him surrounding Game Week 1 last year. Let's hope they don't repeat themselves for the Algorithm's sake, at least. Trent Alexander-Arnold doesn't need much discussion around him. A very nice fixture against Ipswich. He's looked impressive in pre-season as well. I think Liverpool as a whole have been quite good under Slot so far, and you know pre-season can be misleading. But if that's anything to go on, then they should fare well in this first fixture against Ipswich. And Trent at 7 million compared to last season when he was 8 million. Definitely, I think he's going to be in more teams come the Game Week 1 deadline. But when there's people like Quansah at 4.5, there is an argument there as to whether the 2.5 million could be better spent elsewhere. Dan Burn is another one where the minutes might be an issue. I think the signing of Kelly at centre-back is interesting for Newcastle. He could easily partner share in centre-back. And then Lewis Hall has played the majority of the minutes at left-back in pre-season. I think Eddie Howe is going to look to get the youngster some more game time, and I predict him to start game week 1. But I would predict that Burn starts in centre-back alongside Fabian Schär, and that seems to be the consensus of a lot of Newcastle fans and discussion and predicted lineups and whatnot on Twitter. But of course, you've got to consider that with Burn moving forward. It is a very nice home fixture for Newcastle against Southampton, a new promoted side. So you'd back them if they can return to their defensively solid ways of maybe the campaign prior to last. Then there could be a clean sheet in that one quite easily. And Dan Burn is always a threat from set pieces too, obviously. Into the midfield, we're going to see Mohamed Salah there as the captain away at Ipswich. We've then got Saka again for that Arsenal's kind home fixture against Wolves. We've got Anthony Gordon and Eze then rounding off the midfield. So a fair chunk of the budget going into these 4 assets here. Gordon, notoriously good at home. The only issue with him for me would be the lack of minutes in pre-season and that he has come back only recently. I could easily see him being maybe subbed off early for someone like a Harvey Barnes. And for that reason, maybe even looking towards someone like a Jacob Murphy as a 1-week option could be good, or even maybe even just going with him in your team full stop and saving that 2 million rather, and just even banking it or investing it elsewhere in your team and going with another wild card or just reallocating funds a few game weeks down the line. I like Murphy as a punt in that kind of midfield area. I'm not going to discuss Salah and Saka too much. I think they're talked about in a lot of realms, but Eze is one that is more recent discussion topic due to the fact that Oscar Bobbs got injured and Man City have been heavily linked or rumoured with Eze. He's got a buyout clause. Man City could easily get in there and get the deal done in a matter of days or maybe even hours. So if that does become news tomorrow at some point, or today if you're watching this early on Friday morning, then make sure to keep an eye on that, because it could come right down to the deadline when rumours start flying about, and Eze's game time could become an issue if he's in transfer discussion talks and whatnot. So worth keeping a close eye on that one as we approach the deadline, and obviously could affect his game time in future game weeks to come as well. But it's a nice fixture away at Brentford, obviously on penalties and all that, the talisman really of that Crystal Palace side who did look really good, and so there's still all the argument for having him in your team. And then up front, we've got Isak, Havertz and Chris Wood. So 3 home fixtures, 3 very good strikers, a few of them on penalties as well. So, very hard to argue against all 3 of these. Muniz away at Manchester United could be another nice fixture. I think that the Man City assets and the Fulham assets are ones with away games that might look tougher on paper, but actually are really good options this week. I couldn't squeeze many of them into my team either. It was just hard to justify. But yeah, I think Man City and Fulham are teams that are going to be ones to start the season off well, even with fixtures that don't look that nice compared to something like Southampton at home or Bournemouth at home, like you see with Nottingham Forest in this graphic. So yeah, equally, still very much like Chris Wood, should be on penalties. Another one with game time issues if Awanai is back fit and available. For what I can see, Chris Wood is in my own personal side right now, and if that's got anything to go on, then that's my seal of approval for him. Kai Havertz is another one that I do like. I prefer him over someone like Ollie Watkins. I think he's just grown into that Arsenal team. I think he's that type of player who can go big in games as well. And, there's 2 or 3 attacking returns in one game leading to those mega hauls is what can really make the difference in FPL. And he's just that kind of player. I really like the look of him, and I think he could do well in Game Week 1 in particular. Alexander Isak is the one just everyone owns, really. For the sake, let's see who's down here on the bench. I'm aware we've spent quite a lot of time on the algorithm side today, so we'll get into mine just in a moment. We've got Dallo, who's an interesting one. We've got Harry Winks, and we've got Barco. So Barco's one to keep an eye on. Brian has signed a new defender. There's debate about whether he'll start on the right. He's been signed to play there, or whether he'll come in and have competition for Barco at left back. I think with a 4.0 million defender, there's not really that much to lose anyway, especially as you'll probably play the wild card in around Game Week 6. You maybe want to save it. But for me, I think Barker's maybe still even worth the risk. I think he's that good of an asset on set pieces, etc. There's quite a high upside there. And if you go for someone like a Faisal Vestergaard or whoever you go for instead, the bar's pretty much on the floor and it's just going to be 2 points every game week. So yeah, Dallo's an interesting one. Man United defence is pretty much a no-go for me with all the injuries. Luke Shaw looks like he's out as well. I just can't go there until I see some form of improvement. You've still got Casemiro in CDM, for Christ's sake, so I can't really see the United defence improving too much, so I'd stay away for now. And let's have a look at my team then and have a quick discussion around the captaincy as well. So, hopefully this is showing up all right. I have made some changes here. I have still gone with Gordon. I was very tempted to go with Murphy, but I did have the extra funds, so I just ended up going with him in the end. Up front, couldn't get Haaland in. I've gone with Dominic Solanke, who I think will come straight in for Spurs, and I can just see it in my foreshadowing the future, him coming in and just scoring a brace on his debut. I just think he's that kind of player. Make a statement. Spurs, one of those teams that kind of start the season well and hit the ground running. I think a game against Leicester is a good base for them to do that as well. So he's come into my team for this game week. I've also gone with Diogo Jota to complete my Liverpool triple up. I think that he's just worth the punt, given that he's very likely to start game week 1. And in that striker role, he's just such a good finisher as well. So that's why he's in there. And I've doubled up on the Arsenal defence, putting Saliba in alongside Gabriel and Trent. And then in goal, I've just gone for Nick Pope instead. So I've still got that Newcastle defensive asset to get a clean sheet in there. So I didn't see the algorithm team before I made my side, but there are quite a few similarities in the picks here. You know, 2 strikers the same, 3 midfielders the same, and 2 defensive options the same. I've got Barco, Howard Bellis, and Lavia down there, just the basic funds on the bench. But I have still gone with Mohamed Salah captaincy. My predicted points total is lower. If you want to check your own, make sure to head over to Fantasy Football Fix, of course, and use the Assistant Manager tool. Let's see why I've got my armband on Salah and why I'm not going for Isak, although it's very, very tight. So yeah, it's very, very difficult between these kind of 4 assets this week, depending on who you own. Some people will have, 2 of these players. Some people might have 3 of these players in. Pretty much everyone will have Isak. Then it's kind of either 2 of these other 3 that you might have in your team this week. But I think a lot of people will be on captain Mohamed Salah if they own him. If not, then I think it becomes a bit of a tougher question between the likes of Isak or Haaland, for example, with the fixtures. The fixtures do kind of go in favour of Salah and Isak. They're playing 2 promoted teams who don't have any expected goals conceded data from last season. It's not really worth pulling data from Southampton the season prior. Just doesn't seem too relevant. But out of the other 2 fixtures, it's no surprise to see that Wolves at home is a better fixture than Chelsea away. Although I would say it's worth noting that I don't think Chelsea away should be a red fixture attacking-wise. They've looked pretty hopeless in pre-season. I don't think they look very coordinated. And I still do think that Man City could easily score 2+ goals in that game there. Even with the recent injury news and all that, they've got the depth to cover it. So, yeah, for what it's worth, I think that Haaland fixture against Chelsea is nowhere near as bad as it looks with those colour comparisons there between the green and the red. In terms of team performance last season, Liverpool were the strongest attack of the bunch here. They're XG 2.4, kind of per 90 on average. But the other teams not too far behind. Man City were the closest on 2.2. But then it's Salah on an individual note. Expected FPL points per 90 go in favour of him, 8.35. And that's what gives him the overall highest predicted points total of any player for Game Week 1. And Haaland actually the 4th highest of the bunch, which I find maybe a little bit surprising. But Isak and Saka both have very strong at-home fixtures and will probably on penalties. So, yeah, that's what the stats are saying. That's what everything's saying. I'm saying that Salah's probably just about the safest option to go for. But there's some very strong other shouts here that you can pick, and I'm not sure you can go too wrong with captaincy. I know if you get it wrong, so to speak, and your rank doesn't look very healthy after game week 1, it can be a bit of a downer. But you have to remember, it's season long. We won't always get the chance to punt on captaincy. There'll probably be one standout for many game weeks this season. Have your fun whilst you can in FPL, and overall, it is just a game at the end of the day, remember, although we do take it sometimes a bit too much more seriously than it should be. But yeah, with that being said, I wish you the best of luck for the start of the season. I hope you have a very good game week 1 and you're happy with your rank come the end of it. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and the season is 38 game weeks, not all in one. But with that being said, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.